Okay, 31124 Re-Revamp Mark II. It's difficult to get the whole thing in shot because it's even bigger than before, basically. One hit on Arthur. Hello, sir. You here to cause trouble? You here to sniff everything? You here to lick it a bit as well for some reason? Okay, you satisfied? You're just gonna chill just off camera then? Okay, fine. So, no nibbling that. Actually, so, let's get a quick padding shot in to show that, yep, it's the full thing. And then bring it in for a closer look. So, yeah, I posted a version of this previously. Observant viewers will recognise the only thing unchanged is the thighs, which I got right the first time, it turns out. So, new stuff then, starting from the top. Yeah, brand new head with additional Super Robot swag, basically. And some bite marks, because Arthur has nibbled it slightly, but, you know, that's just how it be. So, actually, let's pop off this head for a closer look in comparison with the original, which I have right here off camera. Arthur has now wandered off, so nothing's going to get nibbled. So, as you can see, it keeps the visor detailing, keeps the horns and expands them, keeps the sloped front, and then it basically builds the rest of the head around that. So what we end up with is this sort of helmet style design with a very classic Super Robot faceplate with a couple, you know, with these two 1x1 tiles for more, these two 1x1 clip tiles with some slight groovling, slightly more modern flair to it. The earlier version of this was a lot less stable and the entire head could just detach. As it stands, the eyes are held on by one stud and the mouth plate is held on by one stud and then also by one stud. This was the only reliable way to go from the two for that, well, one for that stud to the necessary size for this. I also added the headband. I like to imagine it can shoot lasers or something from there as one of its many giant robot finishing moves. So clipping this back on. The actual chest plate, panning this back up, is unchanged from the last version, but the chest itself has been significantly bulked out to give it some more width. Let's just pull the arm off. Yeah, to give it some more depth, some more dimension to it. Anyway, plug this back. Actually, let's take a look at the arm, seeing as I've already got it off. So, yeah, upgraded to a Galador joint, which, yes, that's what I'm calling them. Our slugger is objectively correct. That is what they are. You know, if we're going to call these joints a Mixel joint, we're going to call these a Galador joint, because they do be from Galador. Anyway, ball joint with friction at the shoulder. It gives it all the articulation it needs, pretty much. The hand is a looser interpretation of the original hand. I interpreted the fingers as being out of focus. There we go. You know, like this part kind of reads as a hand with the big chunky fingers, and so I interpreted that as a 3-fingered hand, as 4 was too many. And when I could fit 3 into less space, doing so came at a sacrifice I was not willing to make, which is the spread. Does it look perfect? No. It places the index and ring fingers slightly further out than it normally should, but I don't care. The index finger is also slightly fragile, as, again, it's just two studs holding that on, and then one stud holding it onto the rest of the hand. But based on the way it's constructed, there's no real way around that I've been able to figure out. At least not one that wouldn't massively restrict the finger articulation. So, for the time being, let's just close this back up. Close this back up. And give this part of the design a nice big thumbs up. It's actually in focus. Yeah, would be better if I could straighten the thumb out, but there's no way to get fully articulated fingers at this particular size. So, swinging him round and coming to the back. The wings attach in the same way as the last version, but there's these new assemblies that expand them outward slightly and just make them a little bit bigger and gives you a few more options. You know, there's an extra rotational joint right before the actual curve part, so you can actually fold these down now for more of a shell type look. It gives it slightly more of a basically keeps the silhouette but gives it more of a cape. It doesn't look too bad. Anyway, just about works. But the wings, they look best when they're flared out. I think we can all agree on that. So let's leave them flared for the remainder of this. So the hip used to be one of those stacked stud friction joints. It uses a 1x3 axle with a stud on the end, and then two 1x2 bricks with the pinhole. Basically plug it into one, thread it through the other, and plate those together for stability. But I was able to carve out enough space for a mixel joint, well, not a mixel joint, a ball joint torso that's a lot sturdier. Coming down to the hips then. Actually, let's, as you can see, friction joint on the inside and everything. Right, coming down to the hips then. This is where things start to get a little more complicated, as now the flaps are in 3 parts. But you can get nearly the full range forward, nearly the full range back, and pretty much the full Van Dam out. Internally then, let's just slide this ball joint off to show some of the workings. Oop. Yeah, internally then, there's a 5-length axle running pretty much from the top of this to right around there. I can actually remove to right around there. Then this bottom part pretty much plugs on to cover that up. This section is this section threads the top 2 parts thread through 1x2 bricks for a little more width. The bottom part goes through 1x3 and then widens out half a stud on either side via these pieces. Would also add a little detailing and the light to connect on the legs. Obviously the hip skirting is just on mixel joints, so it can get out of the way well enough for most poses. And it's actually pegged in to the clip pieces there, which will be more apparent whenever I get around to posting the instructions for this. Because I'm working on them, they're taking a while, but they're in progress. So, Actually, let's just leave the leg removed to show it off a little easier. Yeah, thigh exactly the same as the previous version. The legs, pretty much the same. I've modified the front detailing to give to get some more yellow in there and to give it the hinged kneecap, which is a little prone to detaching, but there's not a whole lot I can really do about that. Hello, Evie. You also here to sniff everything? Yeah, but she's parked by the accessories. We'll get to those in a minute. So articulation, then you saw what the hip could do. Full range at the knee. Full below the knee swivel. Evie's coming back into frame. The ankle then is as unrestricted as it was before. And it can... Madam? Madam? I know you're a cat, but that doesn't mean you have to push... That doesn't mean you have to push things off tables. Yes, go ahead and sniff that. There we go. Right, where was... She likes the sword, it seems. Anyway, where was I? So, the leg then can push right into about there for minimum gap, maximum... Evie, stop nibbling that. Stability. It can also sort of pull down on the axle, which loses some stability, but can get you potentially far more tilt than you're ever likely to need, let's face it. So, plugging that back up. Yeah, feet have been totally redesigned. I found somewhere to secure them in place slightly better, if anything, but bringing these out slightly further would help. It's going to take a few plates. I'll probably be in the instructions version whenever that goes live. So yeah, the detailing from the original feet has been reinterpreted somewhat. We've lost the slope, beefed up the toes, rounded them off. Turned the yellow, actually rotated the yellow stripes 90 degrees, and interpreted the cylinders as these smaller, chunkier cylinders. So, let's quickly reassemble this guy and get to the... with the articulation covered, let's get to the accessories. Clunk. Because the original accessory is still present, modified slightly. So first things first. Swiveling this for various degrees. This maintains the sort of repulsor blast type parts from the original, but they are now attached to a slightly different spot and are removable to allow for the accessories to be added. So, with that in mind, let's plug in the handle for the axe, which just goes on there, and the bottom part, which has been slightly extended from the last version. Close the thumb, close the fingers, and there we have the one. We have the first of the weapons. So these have no basis in the original build, but a tomahawk like this feels like a good classic robot weapon, thanks to the likes of Getter 1 being armed with one. So, and we'll get a robot in general, I guess. So, yeah, the basic brick-built tomahawk. It actually is symmetrical front to back, more or less. There's, or this is all the anti-studs showing on this side, but at the thickness I'm working at, there's not a lot I can really do about that without compromising a great deal of stability and making it a lot thicker than it needed to be. So, let's unpeg the other hand to get the just to bring it a little closer to get the sword in place. As you can see here, he can form a closed fist with the repulsors in place, but he forms a better closed fist without them. Focus, please. Thank you. Yeah, so pretty much same story, but for the sword, you're going to want to hold that to get the finger, as this finger is tighter than the others for some reason. Move that back. And then bottom half of the handle attaches in the same spot. Top half of the handle attaches in the same spot. Rotate the thumb in under the guard. And close up the fingers. Sword then slightly bigger. I add a little extra flair to it, slightly more Voltron inspired this time, because, you know, the guy himself was getting a little bigger, the sword wasn't, it didn't feel right. Let's get this in more of a throwing, a very ready to throw type pose. And the one downside is that that's still about as far as the current elbows can go, but you know, I'm willing to accept 45 degrees at the elbow for the rest of it looking right. So, swirl that back into more of a throwing pose. Bring this down. As you can see, new shoulder pads as well from the, I want to say they're from the Marvel buildable figures? I don't know. Also, this is a bonus, includes a little 2x4 plate as hand accessories can attach to this. A lot better than the previous method of a hand rack and another smaller accessory rack. So, yeah, we now have this guy ready to face the forces of evil, or whatever. Whoop. My tripod isn't actually big in... Hang on a second. If I tilt this that way... Yeah, he's too big for me to get him fully in shot in my current filming setup, but there's nothing to be done about it. So, size comparison then. We've seen him with the original build in the thumbnail. As you can see, it comes up somewhere around the thigh. Here is a render of several different versions of this build, side by side, to show the progress that I've made over time, including the first embiggened version that I never actually bought the parts for. I felt like the old head was a lot more in scale with that one. And just to round out the size comparisons, let's bring the camera right the way in, up slightly, and show off comparison with a minifig. So yeah. Yeah, I like to envision this guy as being like a sort of micro scale super robot that's like it's like the size of a skyscraper in traditional anime super robot style. Well, this guy is sort of mini scale. This guy is the one that's down here off camera is more micro scale, but the same general concept. Well, I did. You probably noticed I switched around the shoulders and the shoulder plating just to get some more colour blocking on the go there. So, yeah, this has... Well, let's see if I can get the sword a little more in shot. Yeah, so, this has been... Actually, let's get the front of the sword in shot. It looks slightly better. So, this has been Lucas Builds. This has been my promised revamp of set 31124, this wee man. And I'll see you next time for... Let's check out some smaller... Let's check out something a little smaller next time. Yeah, I've got a couple of builds lined up for the Geobots fan theme. I'll show those off. So, see you then.